In the heart of heaven, a storm raged. Darkness rose in rebellion against the throne of light, but light answered. With wings of fire and a sword of glory, Michael, the archangel, descended. The devil roared, cloaked in shadow and pride. They clashed light against flame, truth against lies. Thunder echoed as Michael struck with divine power. The devil fell, cast down from the heights. Silence followed, then the sky blazed with victory. Good had triumphed. The war in heaven was over, but the battle for souls had just begun. Long ago, before time began to be numbered or measured by mortal men, there was war in heaven. Oh, not the kind of war that you and I know, for there were no tanks or guns or cannons that belched fire and steel across the fields of strife. It was a war of angels, a war of light against darkness, a war of good and evil, a war of God against the devil. When the foundations of this world were being laid, the Almighty divided all that He had created into two camps. On one side were the holy angels, spirits of pure light and immeasurable power, whose every thought and action radiated goodness, beauty, peace, and love. On the other side were the fallen angels, spirits of shadow and immeasurable pride, whose every thought and action radiated lust, hate, violence, and death. At the head of the celestial host stood Michael, the archangel, the warrior of God, whose armor shone like 1,000 suns and whose sword burned with the fires of holiness. And at the head of the rebel host stood Lucifer, the fallen angel, the devil himself, whose armor was as dark as the pits of hell, and whose sword dripped with the venom of sin. The war began without warning. One moment all was peace and harmony in the courts of heaven. The next, it was a maelstrom of chaos and destruction. The rebel angels attacked with the fury of a storm, their swords flashing like lightning, their shields crashing like thunder. But the holy angels fought back with the strength of an earthquake, their swords burning like the sun, their shields glowing like the moon. For countless ages, the war raged on, neither side able to gain the upper hand. Then Michael, the archangel, had an idea. He would challenge Lucifer to single combat, a battle between the two archangels to decide the fate of the war. Lucifer accepted the challenge and the two met in the plains of heaven. The battle was epic. Michael, the archangel, fought with the power of God Himself behind him. Every blow of his sword shook the foundations of heaven. Every flash of his shield blinded the eyes of the enemy. But Lucifer, the devil, fought with the strength of a fallen angel fueled by pride and envy. Every thrust of his sword tore through the ranks of the holy angels. Every parry of his shield deflected the burning rays of the heavenly host. As the battle raged on, the fate of the world hung in the balance. If Michael won, the war would be over and the forces of darkness would be banished from creation. But if Lucifer won, the war would continue and the forces of light would be scattered and destroyed. Then came the turning point of the war. As Michael and Lucifer clashed in the midst of the battlefield, a bolt of lightning split the sky and a voice boomed across the plains of heaven. Lucifer, I cast thee out of heaven, thou art cast down to hell, and with that, Michael struck a mighty blow that sent Lucifer reeling backwards. Seizing his opportunity, Michael pressed his attack, driving Lucifer back until the fallen angel stumbled and fell. And as he fell, his army broke and fled. And so the war in heaven came to an end. The holy angels had triumphed over the rebel angels. Lucifer and his followers were cast out of heaven and banished to hell. And Michael, the archangel, was hailed as the hero of the war, the savior of the heavenly host. But even as the celebrations were at their height, Michael knew that the real battle was just beginning. For while the war in heaven had been about power and dominion, the battle for souls was about faith and obedience. For now the fate of humanity hung in the balance. And Michael knew that he had to rally his troops and prepare for the long and arduous task ahead of them. He addressed his fellow angels, his voice echoing with the solemnity of one who knew the gravity of the task before them. "The war in heaven is over," he said, "but our work is far from done. For while we have triumphed over the forces of darkness here, the greatest battle still lies ahead of us. The fate of humanity hangs in the balance, and we must be ready to face the challenges that lie before us." His words hung in the air, a solemn reminder of the responsibility that rested upon their shoulders. The angels, ever obedient, bowed their heads in reverence. They understood the weight of Michael's words. The war in heaven had been but a prelude to the greater conflict that lay ahead. Michael, the archangel, knew that the battle for souls would be a long and difficult one. The devil and his demons would stop at nothing to corrupt and destroy humanity. But he also knew that he had the power and the strength to overcome any obstacle. With renewed determination, Michael set about his task. He rallied the heavenly host, calling upon them to put aside their weapons of war and take up the tools of faith and love. He urged them to be patient, to be kind, and to be compassionate. For the battle for souls would not be won by force or coercion, but by example and persuasion. As the angels prepared for their new mission, a sense of peace and hope filled the heavens. They knew that the war might have been over, but their work had just begun. And so they set about their task with renewed vigor and determination, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead of them in the great battle for souls. Meanwhile, Lucifer, the fallen angel, was seething in the depths of hell. His pride and arrogance had been shattered by his defeat at the hands of Michael. But he was not one to stay down for long. As soon as he recovered from his wounds, Lucifer set about gathering his forces, plotting and scheming ways to strike back at the forces of light. He knew that he could not win a direct confrontation, so he resorted to subterfuge and deceit. And so the battle for souls began. The angels of light spread their message of love and salvation throughout the world, performing miracles and healing the sick. The demons of darkness, on the other hand, spread their message of sin and despair, tempting the weak and preying on the vulnerable. As the battle raged on, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Michael, the archangel, watched over his creation, guiding and protecting them from the forces of evil. He knew that the battle for souls would be a long and difficult one, but he also knew that he had the power and the strength to win. And so the battle for souls continues to this day. The angels of light and the demons of darkness are locked in an eternal struggle, and the fate of humanity hangs in the balance. What side will you choose? Will you follow the path of light or the path of darkness? The choice is yours, my friends, but choose wisely, for the fate of your soul may depend on it. Now, if you want to hear more epic tales of good versus evil, then make sure to check out the playlist where you'll find all of our stories about angels and demons. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching. Until next time. May the light be with you.